So this session is us just picking our kernel we're going to use for the 12.04 release. And so if you look down here, I've highlighted what the previous release dates have been. So 3.0 came out in July, 3.1 was just recently in October. So given that we had a slightly later release date for 3.1, I think 3.2 is going to come out January timeframe. And then 3.3 probably end of March, early April.
I did some dates based on current dates, and I came out with about the 9th of January for 3.2 and about the 2nd or 3rd for 3.3, which frankly is very, very close.
It's very close. So kernel freeze for 12.04 is April 5th. So given that this is an LTS release, I would propose that we pick 3.2 to give us a longer duration for testing, stability, bug fixing. We'll probably have a couple iterations of stable updates for 3.2 by the time we hit kernel freeze.
Yeah, I think we'll get probably four, won't we?
Yeah. So that would be my proposal, is picking 3.2. Does anybody else have any thoughts or?
All of the people who've asked have said, will it be at least 3.2? So I think there's nobody been asking for later than 3.2.
Okay.
All of the software that I've heard of that we need should be at least mostly working in 3.2. We may have to carry some patches if we go 3.2, but
Okay.
I don't think it's a big deal.
So please.
Do we have any idea which 3.2 is going to be Greg's long?
Sorry, I can't hear because you're right behind the buzzing thing.
So do we have any idea which one is going to be Greg's long term that he thinks next year?
Speaking from Linux Khan, it seems like he will pick one release every year.
Yeah,
And he picked 3.0.
so that's this year. Why not next year?
So next year would mainly be 3.2 or 3.3.
Curious if we had any indication.
That's what I got out from it.
So there's a risk if we're on our own, we may have to support 3.2 in a long-term support kind of way. That is inevitable at some point. With that before. Right, and we do that for 3.3 DRM at least.
I don't think it's closed already.
Like, I would assume it closes like now, right?
Yeah, something like that.
It should be Friday or Monday
Yeah.
if it goes to the normal plan.
Which is an interesting, from a hardware standpoint, we're actually having a feature freeze for the kernel right now, before we have even talking about what features we would like for. That's what we do now. We've planned the
Right.
features for the upcoming release, and we're having the feature freeze for the kernel as we speak.
Yes,
So
but an LTS doesn't have any new features by definition. Therefore, you don't need any new features. Right? I mean, that's the LTS model. I mean, we can still add features up to feature freeze. We just may have to carry them as patch sets. And that's the risk we take by choosing early.
Yeah, I'm not saying my arguments weighs heavier than everything else. It's just something to consider, and that is slightly awkward for me.
You're going to be missing some features.
Yeah, I want to fix up some jack detection stuff, for example, that I haven't got the time to do yet in the kernel.
Right, but you can send us patches for that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a patch every
And
kernel.
actually, that's not
Yeah.
really a feature, that's a bug fix.
That's a bug fix, so that you can probably keep sending us those even after feature freeze. If jack detection doesn't work, that's broken, right? It's not a feature. It's a feature to the user, but it's a bug, because it should work, and it doesn't.
Yeah, it's somewhere, it falls between the feature and a bug, essentially.
Right.
Is it
We have to convince two of us.
Yeah, so I guess your arguments weigh heavier here, that it's more important to get something really stable, but just wanted to.
Right.
What's my
If this
opinion?
weren't an LTS, I would be pushing for 3.3.
Mhm.
But because it is,
Right.
I'd like 3.2.
Especially, I would say another factor weighing in this is toward the end of the cycle, I expect more and more kernel tests to come online in QA, and we may start finding things that have been there all along. I just don't know. So let's settle in on something earlier is good from that point of view too.
So as a secondary part of this session, we also review the flavors that we're carrying, and for the upcoming LTS, we've already started discussions on our mailing list about merging the AMD 64 generic and server flavors, just because the configuration differences between the two are so minimal that it's making sense to merge them, and we've actually already applied the patches to make the generic and server configs identical.
So we're going to have a work item to test those?
Yes.
To confirm that there's no regression?
Yes, and then hopefully by Alpha 2, I think I put, if the testing proves favorable that we can merge them, then that's when I'm gonna do the merge, and that's when we're gonna have to worry about LTS to LTS upgrades.
Well, one position we could take there is to keep the separation at the meta package level, so that people just roll forward and they get a kernel that's not labeled
yeah.
server, but
It's
so that
actually a
if
good
we ever
idea.
need to split it again, we can,
Easily,
that we know who goes which way.
yeah,
perhaps.
okay, that's a good idea. It was also brought up that if we could evaluate the need for our non-PAE kernel, so the generic kernel, I guess, and if we could combine the generic and generic PAE flavors.
Right, so to do that, we're going to lose support for, what is it, some geos, I think. And some vias. Yeah. But most of the vias that I see, we already drop support for because of other requirements.
Yeah.
So I think one of the problems there is we don't really know the answer. And I
Aren't
think
the geodes all 586 and we've already dropped those two?
possibly. I thought there were some that had the required features.
I thought we already lost geodes, but
So I think that just tells us we don't know the answer, and we should have a work item to figure out, is there anything we support that doesn't support PAE? And perhaps do some measurements to see if there is a cost power benefit between the two.
Oh, yeah.
So, Case, how do we, what is this non-trivial set? What's in it? Because we took a break at LTS Lucid to throw a lot of hardware away, which...
we've already lost
Oh,
the
I thought we've already lost.
586.
Right, when we went to, what was it, 686 plus C move or whatever it was?
Yes.
Didn't we lose most of those then? Okay, so I think we need to work out what we're going to lose before we can make any sort of decision, and I don't think we have a very clear view. So I think this should be one of those where we take an action to figure out what's in that set, how big is that set, and what is our penetration in that set, and decide whether we're going to drop it or not.
Case, do you remember if all the atoms supported PAE?
Love.
I thought they did.
I just know, I know the base architecture does, but Intel went and was disabling all kinds of stupid things, like
Right.
NX.
Right. Is okay. So I think we'll just take the action away to figure out what that is, and then we can have a bigger discussion once we know what the set looks like. What else? Power. We last time talked about dropping one of these, and I forget which one.
Did we?
Was it the non-SMP version of 32-bit? I can't remember. And I think we were going to talk to the Muso, Luke, to find out, and perhaps we should take an action just to review whether we still need the non-SMP version of the power or not. Because I had the feeling that that the SMP one will fall back gracefully to non-SMP or something, and actually it's just stupid to have both. I think JK was the other person who was in on that
Okay.
talk. Hey, whoa. And then the only other one that's come to our attention is there's the ARM HF bring up going on, which means we're going to have to start supporting that.
So, okay.
But the chats
Who
I've
did you
had,
talk to?
I'm told that the EL kernel is the same.
Oh,
Because there's no floating point in the kernel, you're only supporting user space difference, but you need to build it. So I
Okay.
think we can just copy the config over, and the rest of the support's already in our package, but we need to do
Okay.
it. So if you want to actually need to do that, because I'll get with them and make sure that's true. I suppose we should bring up, there was a separate session yesterday about low latency. The sound guys are keen
Yeah.
on having a low latency flavor, but they're
that's a universe
now
package.
going to do it as a separate package. We're going to support them in that, but there will be a low latency community supported
Okay.
kernel. They're talking about supporting it for 5 years. I don't know if that.
Oh.
We should get that formalised, but so there will be that flavour, but we don't have to do anything
Okay.
other than help them.
Could we do that with the non-PAE kernel? Turn into a community
Oh, that's
supported
a question.
Oh, turn P. Yeah, add that as a question to the question. That's a good idea. Whatever that might mean.
Also, do the audio, do the studio people require non-PA?
Can't imagine they can. I can't imagine they can.
Now, I'm a little bit ignorant about PAE, but isn't that compiled so you can use more than 3 gigs
4 gigs.
on a 86?
Yeah, it's about having more than 4 gig.
Not just about one.
But some hardware, older hardware doesn't even support it.
It
Okay.
also is what lets you do NX on.
Right, so I'm hoping Case will be quite happy that we're getting rid of stuff that didn't do an X naturally.
10-year-old CPUs, it looks like.
10-year-old. Wow.
Are you still running that?
Well, and the question, I mean, we've often said,
There's always like the guy, but they're very vocal about it, I know.
right, but those guys can stay on Lucid.
Right.
Has
But
always
that-
been our position.
But there are also, those are the
Already.
kinds of people that if they're still doing that, they may have an interest in
Supported.
Supporting it.
themselves,
That's right.
like the community.
That's right.
It's probably one of those things where it's probably not worth breaking it out as a separate package, but we just don't support it. We build it and don't support it.
So Case just told us he has some antique hardware.
Oh, he's conflicted with himself now. Are we about to see Case like self-destruct? I expect Case is just going to explode in a self-referential doom.
You got a webcam case if that happens?
Can we watch? Okay, cool. So I think, was there any other flavour changes? I don't think I
Not that
recall
I
any others.
Remember.
So what about the moment full frame?
Until they decide what ARM support we need for this release, we won't know what ARM support we need for this release. I mean, we're going to continue to carry OMAP 3 and presumably OMAP 4, I'm not sure. But we'll find out. For OMAP 3 has always been our community teaser kernel, right? Did I say 3 or 4? 3 is what I meant. Should we be changing that? Holy crap. What is he saying?
He says that because,
Yes, PAEs in his systems.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. Alright, so that's still be supported.
Paste your password as well, Case.
No, NX.
Would it make sense to delay the removal of the PAE kernel to the next cycle? After all, this is the stable LTS thing, and so these people with the very old...
The reason we want to drop it now so we don't have to support it for the
support
next
the
5 years.
The next one.
Yeah, exactly. But seen from the user's perspective, it makes more sense to drop it after an LTS than at the LTS.
Right, I agree with that.
Then
It is
also
better for
add
users.
586s in 2015. We're going to leave out that segment.
There'll be someone that running on a satellite somewhere.
Right.
You've got Ubuntu on your satellite. So yeah, I think that's the sort of parts of will be part of the discussion once we've decided whether the segment that we're losing is big enough to worry about at all. Because if all of Case is old junk, Blimmin has PAE, everything does. Guy's like a Hoover. That probably is his password.
Yeah.
Because what better way to protect a password than to pretend it's not your password? Just rot 13 that and you're there. You'll probably do that instead. Is there anything else we need to discuss?
Nope, that was it.
So I think we're good then. 3-2 it is.
All right.
Did you guys already talk about the merging generic with server?
We
Yes.
did talk about it, yeah. I mean, basically we already have commonized the configs because there were only 2 config items that were different, one of which you can change from user space.
Right.
And we're planning between now and Alpha 2 to get some testing done to see if anybody notices essentially. And if not, then we'll probably lose the distinction. But perhaps not from a... Because I imagine that the sort of Linux server is probably one of the few packages that actually tells you which you're running.
Yeah.
It might be handy to keep that separation, even
Yeah.
if they both point to the same binaries.
Might help on
Maybe.
upgrade too.
Right. Well, I mean, we don't have any upgrade. I mean, we're going to have them, even if they migrate you.
Yeah, but I mean, we still would have to be 2 separate binaries, right? Because that'd be a new name.
That doesn't matter what's in uname.
Oh.
I mean, the only thing you use what's in uname for is to find your modules which are in the same place. It doesn't matter if it's... I mean, we probably would make a new name.
Yeah.
Are there performance difference between the non-PAE and the PAE kernel?
There probably will be a performance difference between the two. Yes.
So will these machines who support PAE but does not currently use that kernel, will they start to run faster or slower?
It seems unlikely they go faster. Oh, is that true? Do you start? You only get PSE when you go to PAE, right? You only get big pages. Potentially they might go faster, but then they might go slower depending. The problem is that every CPU has a different MMU model, which some of them have only 1 entry for large pages. So if you start using them, it's actually a really bad thing to do, because you just end up with no page table entries for your kernel, and your kernel thrashes all the time. So there's trade-offs on every piece of hardware. I mean, one of the reasons this has come up is because if you buy a laptop these days, it comes with 4 gigs at least. The fact that you should be running 64 bits is a whole different problem with, assuming you're not.
Okay, so it's not noticeably different.
Do we even turn that on? I thought it was only turned on in the NX emulation was only in non-PAE, isn't it?
No, it's only on PA.
I can trust that one.
I know.
What?
I don't know if I trust his
It's
analysis.
the other way around.
I thought it was non-PAE didn't have NX, and so we only enabled that code on non-PAE.
Right.
And he's saying we need it on PAE as well, which I suspect we're not doing. We're probably just set the bit gratuitously and it doesn't do anything.
But won't you have to do an additional translation every time you hit a different memory address?
Oh, he's saying for the PAE but no NX case. There is machines with PAE but no NX.
That's what I'm saying, but I don't think the code did that. I thought the code assumed if you had PAE, it didn't do anything. We didn't compile it in unless you were 32-bit without PAE.
Probably not.
I would imagine we set all the NX bits and they have no effect. No one else. We probably just set them and hope that it doesn't.
So can we add a work item for Leanne?
What
Can you
now,
add a
sorry?
work item for me to check that we're setting the emulation for
On the right bit.
on the right bit, yeah.
A case is saying it's not, so hopefully it's right. But we'll check anyway, just to be
If
sure.
not, I'll have to fix it.
Oh, okay, thanks,
It
Case.
seems to follow.
Why aren't you here, Case? We want to hear your dulcet tones.
Okay. Thanks, Case.
Is that it?
Yes. Because I
Oh. Was there any Zen, did you bring up all your Zen things?
Yeah.
thought those were
Because there was some,
changes
but
needed.
they were config things, but then we said we wouldn't talk about them because we were going to fix it all by merging the config and Were they already
No, I think I
fixed?
brought them up in the config review. And
They were brought up, just checking. Because I just
They're
noticed,
built-
I just have to
Get them built in, right? The
Probably have to
pair
get an
version.
action to make the config changes.
especially for KVM, right? Wasn't it something to do with KVM
Well,
building
it's
in?
both. Try to harmonize it so we have the same config, and then we can even make the merge even more simple. Because I think in generic it's not built in. It's a module,
It's a
and
module.
in server, and in virtual it's.
So I don't think we can do this for P, but perhaps for Q we could consider, now that virtual, when we package virtual, we package all of it, but not in one package. It may be possible then to merge server and virtual again by making the meta package install both of the packages or only one of the packages.
I think we started to discuss it, but then so the thought was like you need to change the installer in some way. If you like install the normal kernel, you want all the modules, and if you install virtual, like you don't
Right.
want to
So
drop
you'd
one
need
part
to.
of-
Yes, I agree.
I
You
wasn't
would
sure.
certainly want the meta package to install both harms
Yeah.
if you choose the fact package. But potentially we can look at doing. I think that's far too risky for P, but for Q we could
Yeah.
do that kind of thing because we may be able to go back to one kernel for AMD64, for example. It would build very quickly. Good.
Okay.
Done. Thank you, everyone.